Yeah, hi everybody. Let's wait a couple more minutes to see that more people will join in.
Just an early FYI, I won't have the full hour of time. I will drop, I think, 15 minutes earlier or so. I think since this is recording and the beginning might not be interesting for everyone, or just the what are we doing here section, I think we can slowly start.
Yeah, I can share my screen, but feel free to continue.
Well, I would just start with some general, hey, we are here again to sync with the community to check that we are all aligned, that the transition and the handover and the knowledge share is as expected. That also to have some place where you can shout for, hey, we need someone to take to pick up a task or to step up, and also for the community to discuss about Magma and also the tasks that were previously mostly done by in quotes non-organic parts of the community. So yeah, that's the general setting, and I think we have to we have a small agenda. There's the first section will be knowledge transfer. Where are we on documenting all the knowledge that that currently exists, and so that the community has reach of it, and also where are we on the technical side. And after that, there's a community section. And if someone has any topics, any anything that he wants to bring up, just speak up or write it in the chat, and we will take and we will come to that. Yeah. But I will mostly hand over to Niels. Have fun.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Hi everybody again. As Max already said, we have prepared a small agenda, but this is just a suggestion. So please feel free to jump in if you have something in mind you want to talk about, or if there's something you want to go into more detail, for example. But if there are no wishes right now, then the agenda would be that we first go over the knowledge transfer. This was already introduced by Max at the last town hall meeting. It's a living page, a living document about what we see, where we collected some knowledge that would be helpful to the community to write it down and to spread it. The second part is a little bit more technical. So it's a huge list of GitHub issues and pull requests. but don't fear, we won't go into detail there. If somebody is interested in the technical details, feel free. This page is reachable in this Magma Core Confluence. The last part would be about the discussion. So everything you have in mind, but also, of course, for us interesting, if you feel comfortable with the direction we are going with the handover, or if you see missing points that we should take care of. You can find the meeting notes in the Confluence. It's under DevOps Community Handover, and there are the town hall meetings, also the last meeting, together with the recordings. And also here is the knowledge to handover overview, links to the meeting notes from the show and tell sessions we had the last 3 weeks, together with recordings, and of course the technical overview. Something somebody wants to jump in immediately? Any questions or comments about the agenda?
Looks good, let's go.
Okay, then let's go the knowledge to handover page. As I said, we have this show and tell meetings. I think most of the people here already participated in at least one of them. So these were 3 sessions about the general Magma CI, but it was a little bit more general because it also involved how the GitHub CI works in general. Marco had a nice session about the virtual machines used in Magma. How are they built? Where are they used? And how are the base images created? Just yesterday, Lars did a session about the Bazel state. So what is possible in Bazel? What is Bazel in general? What are open topics and what is needed for the switch over that was recently voted on in the TSC meeting, that the community plans to go forward with that. Just planned today for next week is a show and tell session about the release process in Magma. So this will be roughly based on the last 1.8.0 release, but there were a lot of changes in between, of course, in the code. But one very huge change is that we are using a new Artifactory that is far more restrictive than the last one. This is actually a good thing from a security perspective, because before a lot of manual stuff was happening in the Artifactory. It was not always documented when artifacts were changed. This is now not possible anymore, but of course this makes the release process a little bit more, not cumbersome, but a little bit more, needs a little bit more effort, because everything needs to be handled by CI. This was not done before, so I expect that at a first try for the release, this will take a little bit more time to fix some stuff, to adapt some stuff, and at the beginning to get an overview what needs to be done in general. So together with the show and tell sessions, which are in a kind of documentation, the meetings are recorded, and people who participated got first-hand experience here. But of course, we also want to write down knowledge that we collected over the last couple of months or the last year. And this was initially set up by Max, but then driven by Cameron, who is also here in the call. So what Cameron did was collect the existing documentation. So I want to be honest, not all links here are from us. Some of the documentation is existing, and we just made sure that it is there, that it is already written down. But we collected it on this page as well in order to have an overview where are the gaps. So for the infrastructure, there's a new documentation which goes through the external technical frameworks and services that are used by Magma. How are they used? How as a developer can get access or technical support? How we are using GitHub is documented in various places. The green check mark means, from our perspective, this is now documented sufficiently. To be honest, we didn't get a lot of feedback. We posted these new documentation pages in the Slack. So if you have time, look over it. The thing is, we are working for over a year on that. So I don't know if there's actually a direct translation from the German saying, but you get kind of blind if you work too long on one topic and you don't know if you are missing some knowledge that needs to be transferred. So please have a look, give us feedback if you find anything that is missing or that is hard to understand, where we should go into more detail. Now is enough time that we can take care of that. For the GitHub actions, there are some parts open, so we are using a lot of secrets in the workflows. This should be have a better documentation, how new secrets can be added and how existing secrets can be accessed. We are using a lot of caching in GitHub. This is a GitHub feature, but it needs to be documented how we are using that and how we are relying on that. We have a large new Artifactory documentation. Feedback would be appreciated here. The CI dashboard that we are using, the Docosaurus documentation, how to contribute and how to deploy changes. AWS is relatively short because, you know, for a couple of weeks now, we are not using AWS anymore, the Linux Foundation account. So if somebody, or if a cloud provider is needed in the future, it needs to be newly documented and discussed and set up when one is provided. For the CI, the parts that were identified are the GitHub action that we used and other jobs in CI that are not directly modeled by GitHub actions. This is documented now. The third-party dependencies have a new overview. Formatting and style guides. This is something, I guess there's never an end to document style guides. So there's the question when to find an end. For Vagrant, it is also documented how to do the provisioning and how to create new base images. But as I said, we also had this show and tell session by Marco here. One thing where we want to add some more content is how the newly published VMs are used. It's basically documented in the workflows, but it could have some additional sentences about it. Yeah. The Docker build also has its own section, and the big open part is the release process. Actually, I'm currently writing on the documentation, but it's still a little bit far from being published. So what I would like to do is to use the next week's show and tell meeting to present the current state, discuss it with the community, and try to point out where are open parts or open points that need to be handled before the next release. Yeah. For security, Sentry, Bazel, and other topics, we have different sections, but the most parts are already documented here. So there's more or less the question if we are still having something in the existing documentation that should be mentioned here, but we feel that these parts are already documented sufficiently. Yeah. So much as an overview for the knowledge handover, so documentation and show and tell sessions. And maybe before we jump into the technical issues, we can have a discussion if there are questions or comments about our approach here with the show and tell sessions and with the documentation effort, if this is sufficiently for the community. Is this helping? Is there something else you have in mind we should have a look at?
For me, this is very helpful, although I'm kind of, I have too much information to absorb, so I'm doing my best and falling short.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the case. I mean, this knowledge was collected over 1 year from a small team, but of course, still it's a lot. I understand that.
I think it would also be helpful, Lucas, if you could add some security, or if you could fill some security gaps there, and just check that security processes are documented. I know that you are very good at documenting stuff. Just wanting to say if you want to.
I will do that.
contribute to
So
that.
I'm reading I'm rereading this stuff, and I will I'll probably add notes most of all on vulnerabilities and on other related workflows and tools.
That's good.
Okay. If there are not more questions or comments, then I could jump over to the more technical view. So maybe you remember this page from the last town hall meeting. This is also a living document, so it's changing almost daily because we are updating it or adding new issues or removing issues where we say is a nice to have, might be out of scope for the handover, and could be taken up by the community if needed at a later point. But yeah, there was a lot of movement. I want to go quickly over the structure, but again, don't go into details for each entry here because this is a very long list. But feel free to have a detailed look for yourself. Again, it's a public documentation in the Magma Core Confluence. So for the legend here, we have green is done, yellow in progress, and blue is planned. Planned does not mean that we would do it before the handover is finished, because some parts here, as I said, are more or less seen as nice to have issues, or are very large issues that might be out of scope, where it does not make sense that we start, or maybe it makes sense that we start, but it would be more or less a grooming of these issues in order to provide more information how to go forward.
Or the community
So,
could just right now engage and take them. Yeah.
Of course. So we have the big part of the DevOps handover. The DevOps monthly share was already passed over when in the last town hall meeting. So Bikram from Wavelabs has taken over and creates the agenda pages and asks for content. The general documentation, so these are the issues that model what I just have shown you on the knowledge transfer page. So we don't need to go into detail here. The release documentation is an extra point because we see it a little bit larger, but I already talked about it. And again, needed code owners from the community. So a shout out to everybody here. If you're not already a code owner, especially Lars from our team, he's not here today, created a lot of issues that are tagged as good first issues. Feel free to take a look if you are interested in something. It's a good start to get code ownership by having a look at some of the existing issues. Technical issues for the release. So since the last time, we now have a Debian promote workflow. As I said, we cannot do manual steps in the Artifactory. Everything needs to be done by CI, and this is a new workflow for a release that copies over the tested artifacts from a release branch over to the production side of the Artifactory. As always, for DevOps work, we had a couple of imminent CI issues that needs to be handled in order to unblock the CI workflows. it always happens that something is upgraded from the outside and does not work with our current setup and needs to be fixed, for example. One thing I want to mention here, this was just recently discovered, that we have a We Make Python style guide CI check that was not working for over a year. So before we started here, and there was a lot of regression happening. So this is something that is running now to make sure that the Python style guides that the community decided on some time ago are now forced in CI. The next big part is make builds more robust and prevent software decay in general. And the big update is here directly at the beginning. You might have read it. It was announced by Marco in Slack that the Fabric upgrade got merged. This was a kind of larger effort because Magma was using a very old and outdated Fabric version for managing the CI workflows. So people who don't know this framework, it's a Python framework for basically handling SSH connections in CI workflows to communicate with VMs. It's used for other use cases as well in production in other projects, but this is the main use case for Magma. Yeah. During the upgrades, because basically everything had to be touched there, it was discovered that there was some technical debt created over the last couple of months or years, and this is tracked now in this issue. A couple of parts we already handled, but again, feel free to take a look. This is an interesting topic to clean these workflows up, and there are a lot of issues open where everybody could take a look at. CPP Redis was not progressed. Let's jump to the next point, make the CI more robust, but this is basically a lot of smaller cleanup tasks. There's currently not really an end. We are trying to tackle the, from our perspective, most important ones. And most important from our perspective is, of course, the stability of the CI, especially the post-merge workflows. So everything that runs on master after something is merged. This includes various integration test workflows. They are still very flaky, but in my opinion, there were a lot of efforts now merged that make it less flaky, but still a couple of points are open where everybody can take a look at. This is more detailed about linting, general code and build improvements. Yeah, also here we added some CI additions, fixing, and also new workflows for the C and C++ formatting. So linters in order to clean up the code, and also linter to auto format all documentation. There was also some, I don't know if you can call it technical debt in documentation, but it was very hard to get a documentation change merged because the linter always complains over a lot of stuff, and a lot of the documentation was now auto-formatted in order to make this process more easy for contributors. Yeah, then for the Bazel handover, again, yesterday was the Bazel show and tell meeting. From my perspective, it was a very nice talk, so feel free to watch the recording from Lars. It's very informative and gives a good overview about how Bazel is used in the AGW. Yeah, there are a couple of open issues. A lot of these are nice to have or maintenance issues that can be taken or needs to be taken over by the community. The last two let's call this the last two big issues. One is the FEG integration test workflow, and actually I merged this shortly before this meeting. So the FEG integration test workflows were still running versus a Magma environment where Magma was built with Make. This was now changed and is running versus an environment where the AGW is installed as a Debian package. So it's much more faster to do it this way, and also it's just unnecessary to build a component from scratch that is not in the focus of the testing here, because the FEG is tested. The second large issue for the Bazel handover is, of course, the switchover itself. There already exists a branch that does, let's say 99% of the cleanup that is needed. This includes removing all make files, removing the make Debian build, and do some cleanup there. So it's basically deleting a couple thousand lines of code. It is prepared, but of course the discussion when this should be done is ongoing. So we will improve this pull request, of course, if necessary, and rebase it periodically, but we will not merge it for now. Yeah, the basic documentation is finished from our perspective. If there are open questions, please give feedback, reach out. These are issues that we plan to hand over to the community. So this is something for Bazel. We don't see that it's currently needed, and should be done at a later point. For example, upgrading to Bazel 6. Bazel 6 is already existing, but it's very fresh. It's version 6.0.0, and at least my opinion is one should wait a couple of minor releases in order to have a stable version to use it in a product like Magma. Yeah, the process preparations. Oh, sorry, I didn't switch this. This is done. So the code owner groups got simplified and merged. I hope that you noticed. Next step would be to clean them up a little, because we have a lot of inactive people in the code owner groups. But this is out of scope here. And the last huge point we are taking a look at is to make sure that 1.7 and 1.8 is in a good state. So, I mean, people are using it. If there's an issue with the 1.8 installation, we see it in Slack. We can react and we can handle it. But this effort goes a little bit further. What especially Sebastian and Moritz from our team are looking at is that the CI is still working sufficiently. So making sure that a hotfix would be possible if needed in those cases, which of course needs a working CI. There was the CI on these release branches is not running regularly. So they are making sure that everything is working, because there were some changes in the master branch because of regression, because of upgrades that might need to be backported. Yeah, this is the more or less technical detailed overview where we had a look in since the last town hall meeting. Are there any questions?
Nothing so far.
Okay, what I know presented you was an overview, again, what we worked on in the last weeks regarding the knowledge transfer and the technical topics. I mean, the suggestion that we have is to go forward the same way. So close the last gaps in the documentation, provide more show and tell meetings for various topics. We ask for feedback, what topics you're interested in, but we can also make more suggestions. Release, of course, is the next one. And of course, further work on technical topics that we are able to handle in time for the next town hall meeting. But again, we are open for suggestion. If you have any other topics in mind where we can take a look at, or what you think is important in scope of the handover.
Do we have some information about how many members from the community started contributing on these issues which are assigned as a good new issues, and how many members of the community started contributing or working with the CI/CD workflows?
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't. Or Max, please.
No, you can start. We'll continue then afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, my answer might be a little bit more sad because, to be honest, I didn't see any new contributors taking action. Apart from us, I have seen a couple of pull requests, but nothing in terms of the good first issues.
I wanted to say good first issues. I think it's something we can rather easily track. Just filter on GitHub, filter for time, and check how many are open, how many are closed, and sort by last interaction. And we can just get that information. I think that's a task that we should just do to get an understanding of that.
Yeah. I will make a note. Yeah, any more questions or suggestions?
Yeah, the second question is, do we know how many of the peers are stuck for the missing reviewers? And are we doing something?
Basically, I mean, we have now 3 review groups. This is code owner infrastructure, code owner gateways, and code owner cloud. And basically all code owner cloud pull requests are currently stuck or take a very long time because there we have in our team the least number of reviewers inside. So,
and
I mean,
it's also within the community a group that is not very present or not very visible at the moment. So there, it would be good to have more people engage.
Either that or do another merge, but I don't know if a merge in the next couple of weeks will help a lot.
I mean, let's think what we do with these problems on the next town hall meeting. I mean, let's try to find a solution meanwhile. But if this, I mean, if we are stuck on the basic thing like the reviewers, we will have even trouble to finish the transition.
Yeah, but I mean, the pull requests that are stuck because of that, it's a very small number. It's like 2-3 pull requests that are stuck because of that. And again, we have a small number, but the number is not 0 in our team, so we can manage it. It's not stuck in terms of that it never gets merged, but more participation there from the community would of course help. And at a later point, so starting in the second quarter in April, it would of course be something the community should think about if this code owner group is still working efficiently.
Yeah. And this
So
is my
Nils,
concern.
Sorry, go ahead, Jordan.
No, it's okay. It's okay, Tapas, go ahead.
Yeah, so Nils, what is the process to nominate, myself as a code owner for the cloud? So
Yeah.
I'm interested for that. So I can
So-
participate at least starting from the review process.
So this is something, and it's very nice that Kendall is here, because this process that we currently have might need a rework. So to summarize the current process for this, the idea that is that some person did a couple of reviews, a couple of pull requests that are relevant for this topic. Usually then this person or someone else asked in the, I think it was the governance code owner channel, to propose themselves as a code owner for this topic. Then Kendall starts a voting process in the private channels of this code owner. And usually it was, I think, that at least 50% needs to give an okay for that. Yeah? But as I said, the code owner cloud group is very inactive, so a lot of people might not react there. So the current process might not be sufficient to add new code owners. Max?
I think we are discussing the wrong thing. Whether
Yep.
code owner cloud group is still working or not is not the important thing. We should ask: are we still able to maintain the orchestrator? Do we still have the people to keep that thing alive, maintained, up to date? And I think that's the harder question, and I don't see a lot of activity in that realm, and I think we need to ask that at some point, if we are actually able as a community to have to do that. And then the code owner group should adopt to that, and the code owner process should adopt to that. But that's still, sorry for that out of context interruption slightly. I had network issues. But I think, Niels, I agree with your summary how to get code owner. Instead of merging, now we need to ask, are we able to maintain the cloud part, the orchestrator part?
Yeah. So I mean, from my perspective, this question is a little bit more hard and not that easy to solve. But maybe as a quick win, I mean, Tapas, if you are interested, feel free to take over open issues that are related to the orchestrator. And of course, this will be then a quick path to becoming a code owner in this group and to enlarge it.
Makes sense.
Yeah. More questions or topics to discuss for the handover? Maybe then one point from my perspective where I don't have a nice answer. Do you think that more people would join this handover meeting and also the show and tell sessions if we have another channel for promoting or advertising these meetings? Is it advertised sufficiently? Are there people that are not coming because they don't know about these meetings? What is your opinion there?
That's a good idea. Maybe we could post about them in the general channel and not just the calendar.
I'm reposting them, majority of not all of them. I'm reposting them with a channel, but I mean we need to at least post these things with a channel.
I would also add channel the announcements channel, because that is, and general. I think those two are the ones that when you sign up for Slack, you're automatically in those channels. So everyone who is on the Magma Slack is in both of those channels.
Gotcha.
I mean, what I'm currently doing is I'm writing it in general, in dev, in announcement. Okay, I didn't use the channel notification. if I from this round here get an okay to use it, I will do it. But usually I use it with care because there are over 2,000 people in this channel, and a lot of people are annoyed if it's used too much.
Yeah, but these are big things. I mean, this is not small thing.
Okay.
They will be more annoyed if they wake up in 6 months and discover that Magma is no longer supported by anybody because nobody is participating in these meetings. You know,
Okay.
so yeah. I mean, my opinion is that this, I mean, this case is very well fit for a channel messaging.
Okay.
I don't know if somebody has counter opinion than me, but
I agree. I just want to add another perspective. Should we also move the times? It's already late for Europe. It's very, very late for India. And maybe that is also a cause why we are in a seemingly small round.
I agree with that. If the time maybe could be a reason why people are not joining. So maybe some early time for these meetings.
How late is it for you, Tapas?
So it's currently 11.
yeah,
I think
it's
from
very
us,
late
no
for
one would
Tapas.
join at that
Yeah.
time.
How about,
Thanks for joining.
sorry, go ahead.
I think another time that was outside of the West Coast time zone might not be practical for me, but I'm not sure how many people on the West Coast we would lose. I think it'd be a good experiment. Like I think in general, times that are very convenient for the US, for North America, have a sort of slight colonialism to it, and we should, you know, like I can watch a recording.
Yeah, I mean, what we can do is following. I mean, we can try to schedule them in a way that once we are scheduling it in a time zone which is convenient for Asia, and the other time we will schedule it in the time zone which is convenient for the Americas. So we can do this and see how many people are appearing on different type of, you know. Depends on the scheduling how many people are appearing, and then we can make a decision where it makes sense to, in which time zone it makes sense to schedule it. The other approach would be to understand who are the potential people joining, from which time zone are they joining. I mean, but that one is more difficult. Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
Why don't we just ask for in the next announcement, just put a tagline on the bottom that says, hey, if this time zone is inconvenient, just let us know. If people are willing and they can respond back, then we can take that into account. I think right now there's only, I know there are a few people who wants to join from the West Coast, but Lucas and I are the only people from the West Coast. I can start an hour early for what it's worth, but Max.
I just want to say an hour earlier is still 10 p.m. for India right now. And the other thing is, I think it's a task for the outreach team. They should try to understand at which time zones should we schedule meetings so that they reach the biggest, have the biggest overlap with the interested community. So I would just suggest to bring that up there.
Yeah, fair.
We are on a meta level, and maybe we should go back to town hall, and how to get more people to a town hall meeting is something that we can discuss at a different round. Let's use that time and maybe go back to potential discussions, to potential open topics, to feedback, to the goal of that meeting. Does anyone want to bring anything up in that round?
Nothing more? then, if we don't have more topics in mind, Max, you have anything else?
No, I'm out of agenda items.
Then, thank you very much. If you have other feedback that you think about at a later point, feel free to reach out. You can reach us in Slack. Then we can discuss it further.
Niels, one thing,
Yeah.
the canonical Gilliam, he was interested in doing a show and tell with the canonical snap.
Yes.
Maybe connect the two of you, maybe we can get a slot for that.
Oh yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
would be interested as well. Okay. Then thank you everybody for joining in, and see you at the next show and tell meeting or at another public meeting. Bye bye. Have a good day or a good evening.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, Steve.
Bye,
Thanks,
thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.
Right. Thank you.